Dependent Origination, the Buddha's profound map of suffering and liberation, Paticca Samuppada explained. What if everything you experience, your joy, your pain, your birth, even your death, was not random, but part of a pattern? What if the Buddha, 2,500 years ago, discovered that pattern, a chain of cause and effect that binds every being to suffering, and showed a way to break free from it? This pattern is called Paticca Samuppada, Dependent Origination. 12 links, one unbroken cycle, a map that leads from ignorance to sorrow, but also a map that shows the way out. Chapter 1, The Silent Law Behind Existence, an introduction to Paticca Samuppada. He who sees dependent origination sees the Dhamma. He who sees the Dhamma sees dependent origination. The whisper of the wheel. In the heart of the Buddha's awakening lies a mystery more profound than any tale of gods or heavens, the principle of Paticca Samuppada, or dependent origination. It is not merely a chain of causes and effects. It is the very architecture of samsara, the blueprint of becoming, the hidden choreography of joy and suffering, of birth and death, of the entire cycle of conditioned existence. The Buddha did not discover a deity. He did not announce a revelation. He uncovered a principle, silent, inexorable, and universal. Paticca Samuppada is the secret that binds all phenomena into one coherent stream. It reveals that nothing exists independently. Everything arises because of conditions and vanishes when conditions cease. A teaching deeper than words. In the Theravada tradition, Paticca Samuppada is not merely a philosophical curiosity. It is the living heart of the Dhamma, the frame within which all suffering arises, and the path by which all suffering ceases. It is subtle and profound, so much so that the Buddha himself once reflected. This dependent origination is deep, and it appears deep. It is through not understanding this teaching that this generation has become like a tangled skein, like matted hair, like grass and rushes, and does not pass beyond samsara. To truly grasp dependent origination is to pierce through the veil of appearances, to awaken to the invisible flow of causes that carry beings through lifetimes. Beyond linear thinking, many imagine the world in a straight line, cause, then effect. Paticca Samuppada, however, is not merely linear. It is circular, spiral, and alive, ever repeating and reinforcing the illusion of self and permanence. It is a dynamic system, not a static diagram. One moment conditions the next, and the unawakened mind becomes trapped in this endless loop, like a moth drawn into the flame of its own delusion. The 12 links, which we will explore in later chapters, are not just a list, but a mirror held up to existence itself. They reveal how life arises again and again, why suffering persists even when we long for peace, and what keeps the wheel of samsara spinning, both in darkness and in light. The beauty of conditionality. Paticca Samuppada means arising due to conditions. Nothing, not even consciousness, arises in isolation. Everything is relational. There is no being, only becoming. There's no fixed soul, only process. This is not nihilism. It is freedom. When we understand this, we begin to see that suffering is not inflicted by fate or chance, but arises due to causes, and thus it can cease when causes cease. This is the hidden compassion of the doctrine. It offers hope, not despair. the twofold cycle, samsaric and psychological. In Buddhism, Paticca Samuppada operates on two levels: temporal or lifespan cycle, 3 lives interpretation. It explains the continuity of samsaric existence across past, present, and future lives, why one is born, grows old, dies, and is reborn again. Momentary or psychological cycle, mind-moment interpretation. It reveals how in each passing moment, ignorance conditions mental formations, and the whole cycle of becoming unfolds again, even within a single thought. Understanding both interpretations opens the doorway to a profound self-examination, allowing the practitioner to interrupt the cycle right here and now, a map with no beginning and yet an end. Paticca Samuppada does not identify a first cause. There is no origin point because ignorance and craving are mutually conditioning. This is why samsara is called beginningless. But while there is no beginning, there can be an end. That end is nibbana, the cessation of conditions, the unraveling of the knot. This is the subtle miracle. The wheel turns endlessly due to ignorance, but with right wisdom, the wheel can stop. This stopping, the cessation of the chain, is the sublime peace known as nirodha. Chapter 2. The root of the tangle, avidya, ignorance. Avidya paccaya sankhara. With ignorance as condition, formations arise. Paticca Samuppada, first link. The beginning that was never a beginning. In the spiral of existence, what lies at the root of the turning? The Buddha placed avidya, ignorance, as the first link in the chain of dependent origination. But this first is not chronological. It is the deepest obscuration, the shadow beneath all becoming, and the soil in which samsara endlessly flowers. This ignorance is not mere lack of information. It is not simply not knowing facts. It is a spiritual blindness, a failure to see things as they truly are. It is not seeing the 4 noble truths, not recognizing anicca, impermanence, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, and anatta, non-self. It is the fog that cloaks the Dhamma from the heart. Avidya is not stupidity. Let us be clear, avidya is not intellectual foolishness. One may be learned, articulate, well-read, even quote the Tripitaka by heart, and yet remain bound in ignorance, because avidya is not a matter of the head, but of the heart's vision. It is not just a misunderstanding of ideas, but a misseeing of reality. It is like a man standing in bright daylight with eyes closed. Light surrounds him, but he cannot see. The Dhamma is ever present, but avidya blinds the inner eye. The characteristics of avidya. In the Abhidhamma, avidya is described as a root, mula, one of the 3 unwholesome roots: lobha, greed; dosa, hatred; and moha, delusion, ignorance. Avidya is the mother of all defilements, the unseen thread that weaves together delusion, craving, and clinging. It distorts perception. What is impermanent seems stable. What is painful appears pleasurable. What is non-self is taken as I and mine. It conceals causality. The connection between actions and their results, kama and vipaka, becomes hidden. It perpetuates rebirth. Because of ignorance, we act, we crave, and we become again and again. It resists insight. Whenever insight begins to arise, avidya tightens its grip. This is why meditation is difficult. We are dismantling ignorance itself. Avidya and the 3 lives interpretation. In the 3 lives model of Paticca Samuppada, avidya represents past causes, the ignorance in previous lives that condition the present. Because of that past ignorance, sankhara, volitional formations arose. These formations shaped the stream of consciousness, leading to rebirth. Thus, this very life is the fruit of past ignorance, and unless ignorance is removed, it will continue to seed future births. But avidya is also active right now, in this very moment. It is not confined to a mythical past. It shapes each intention, each judgment, each moment of clinging to I, the perpetual tangle. The Buddha once described existence as a tangle within, a tangle without. The world is entangled in a tangle, and I ask you, who can untangle this tangle? Avidya is the root of this knot. Until it is understood, all efforts, even noble ones, remain subtly ensnared in delusion. One may seek peace, but seek it with clinging. One may seek wisdom, but pursue it with ego. Thus, the path itself becomes another knot, unless illuminated by right view, samadhi. Chapter 3. The Architects of Becoming, Sankhara, Volitional Formations. Avidya pachchaya sankhara, with ignorance as condition, volitional formations arise. Paticca Samuppada, second link, the hidden sculptors of existence. If avidya is the unseen fog that blinds us, then sankhara are the hands that mold our world in that blindness. Conditioned by ignorance, we act, and through those actions, we shape the stream of consciousness that flows into birth, life, and death. Sankhara are volitional mental activities, the karmic impulses, decisions, and intentions that direct the current of rebirth. These formations are not random. They are not imposed by fate. They are our own deeds, flowing from ignorance, sowing the seeds of becoming. Not all karma is the same. In the Abhidhamma and commentaries, sankhara are classified into 3 types based on the realm in which they are rooted. 1. Kaya sankhara, bodily volitions. 2. Vachi sankhara, verbal volitions. 3. Mano sankhara, mental volitions. But in the context of Paticca Samuppada, sankhara takes on a more profound role. It refers to the kama-forming volitions, cetana, created under the influence of ignorance, which lead to future rebirth. These include 1. Meritorious volitions, punabhisankhara, actions leading to favorable rebirths. 2. Demeritorious volitions, apanabhisankhara, actions leading to suffering or lower realms. 3. Imperturbable volitions, anenjabhisankhara, actions rooted in deep meditative absorption that may lead to rebirth in formless realms. Each one lays down a seed in the fertile soil of consciousness, a karmic charge waiting to ripen. The builders behind the curtain. Sankhara are not visible, like bricks in a house. They are subtle architects, working behind the curtain of consciousness. When a thought arises from greed or hatred, when an intention forms around desire, when a choice is made from fear, pride, or self-interest, that is sankhara at work. Born from avidya, they are often tangled in delusion. Even wholesome actions, if fueled by ego, can become chains, strengthening the illusion of a permanent self. Like silent potters, these volitions shape the clay of future experience, forming the next birth, the next mind moment, the next world. Sankhara, and the stream of rebirth, in the 3 lives model of Paticca Samuppada. Avidya is the deep darkness of the past life's mind. Sankhara are the karmic activities done in that life. These actions condition the arising of consciousness in the present life. Thus, our current existence is not an accident. It is a fruit, a flowering of volitions planted long ago. And even now, in this moment, new sankhara are being formed, ready to shape the future. We are not just living, we are constantly becoming. The fire of intention. Chithanaham bhikkhave kamam vadami. It is volition, monks, that I call kama. Volition, chithana, is the essence of kama, not just what is done, but why it is done. Two people can perform the same act, giving food, speaking a word, meditating. But with different intentions, their sankhara will differ, and so will the results. This is the radical beauty of the Dhamma. Intention is everything. Every single mind moment, if rooted in delusion, greed, or hatred, constructs the next step in the cycle of suffering. But every moment of clarity, generosity, and wisdom constructs a stairway out. Chapter 4. The Spark of Continuity, Vijnana, Consciousness. Sankhara paccaya vijnanam, with formations as condition, consciousness arises. Paticca Samuppada, third link, the mysterious stream of knowing. What is it that carries us from one life to another? What receives the imprint of past karma? What is the spark that ignites the process of rebirth? That spark is vijnana, consciousness. But this is not the self, nor a soul. It is not a substance that migrates, but a flow of knowing, a conditioned stream of awareness that arises and vanishes with each object ceaselessly. This vijnana is not permanent, not ownerless, not autonomous, but it is the crucial link in the wheel of becoming. It receives the energy of past volitions, sankhara, and lights the first moment of a new life. Vijnana is not you. To understand vijnana properly, we must let go of the idea of a fixed I that observes the world. Vijnana is not a homogeneous entity that stands behind perception. Rather, it is a momentary arising of awareness, dependent on conditions. In the Abhidhamma, each moment of consciousness, citta, arises and passes away extremely rapidly, billions of times in a single blink, each one with its specific object, tone, and function. There is no single observer, only a succession of knowing arising according to karma and contact. So when we speak of vijnana here in Paticca Samuppada, we refer to rebirth-linking consciousness, padisandhi vijnana, the moment that connects one life to the next. The moment of rebirth. In the three-life interpretation of Paticca Samuppada, sankhara, past karma, conditions the arising of vijnana, rebirth-linking consciousness, at the beginning of the present life. At the death moment of the previous life, a final thought arises, chuti citta, followed immediately by the patisandhi citta, the very first consciousness of this new existence. This first moment of vijnana occurs in a mother's womb for humans, or in other modes of birth in different realms. It arises without a soul passing, but simply as the lawful result of causes. Karma meets a suitable condition and consciousness sparks. Like lightning striking dry grass, it flares up, and with it, a new life begins. Vijnana is like a seed carrier. Imagine vijnana as a carrier of karmic seeds. At the moment of rebirth, the sankhara of the past plant themselves within vijnana, and consciousness arises bearing the potential for an entire lifetime. But that seed needs conditions, soil, water, warmth. In the same way, vijnana cannot function alone. It must rely on namarupa, which we will soon explore. Without this foundation, vijnana cannot arise. Thus, vijnana is not a beginning, not an essence, but a conditioned flash, like a fire sparked by old fuel. Vijnana's role in experience. Moment by moment, vijnana operates as the bare knowing of an object. It does not grasp or label. That is the work of sanya, perception, and vedana, feeling. Vijnana is simply the turning on of awareness when object and base meet. For example, when the eye sees color, eye consciousness arises. When a sound hits the ear consciousness arises. When an idea floats into the mind consciousness arises. And when one is reborn, Patisandhi Vijnana arises in a new realm, human, animal, celestial, or even formless, depending entirely on the karma that conditioned it. So consciousness is not king. It is servant to conditions. Chapter 5. The Twin Shadows of Life, Namarupa, Vijnana Paccaya Namarupam, Paticca Samuppada, fourth link, the birth of duality. At the earliest moment of rebirth, when consciousness, vijnana, flickers into existence, it does not stand alone. From this spark, the twin shadows of life emerge, nama and rupa. These are the foundational building blocks of experience, mind and body, mentality and materiality, the inner and outer scaffolding of a sentient being. Like two trees growing from the same seed, nama and rupa arise in dependence on consciousness, and in turn, support the arising of further consciousness. This mutual conditioning forms a powerful feedback loop that perpetuates the illusion of self. Vijnana and Namarupa do not exist independently. They sustain each other, like two bundles of reeds leaning together. What is rupa, form? Rupa means form or matter, referring mainly to the physical body, the material base of life. According to the Abhidhamma, rupa is divided into 4 Mahabhuta rupas, earth, water, fire, air, the essential elements, and 24 Upadaya rupas, derived forms. The body is not a fixed entity, but a stream of material phenomena shaped by past karma, food, climate, and consciousness, like waves rising and falling on the sea, always moving, never self. What is nama? In simple terms, nama is what the mind does. It feels, remembers, intends, attends, and it does so in concert with rupa, the body and world it perceives. Nama, and according to the Abhidhamma, is made up of chitta, the momentary consciousness that knows an object, and cetasikas, mental factors that arise together with consciousness and perform specific functions. Namarupa, not one, not two. Though we speak of nama and rupa separately, in lived experience they are inseparable. There is no feeling without a body, no perception without contact, no thought without form, no form without some knowing. This union is what gives us the illusion of a coherent self. We feel as if there is a me who experiences, who thinks, feels, and moves, but what truly exists is only nama-rupa interacting moment by moment, arising and ceasing with conditions. This is why the Buddha never taught that nama-rupa is a soul. He taught that it is anatta, not self. It arises dependent on conditions, not from a creator, and not from any essence. Chapter 6. The 6 doors to the world, Salayatthana, 6 sense bases. Nama Rupa Paccaya Salayatanam, with name and form as condition, the 6 sense bases arise. Paticca Samuppada, 5th link. We do not passively receive the world. We build it through 6 gates called Salayatthana. The 6 sense bases, these are the eye and visible forms, Chakayatthana, ear and sounds, Sothayatthana, nose and smells, Ganayatthana, tongue and tastes, Jivayatthana, body and touch, Kayayatthana, and mind and mental objects, Manayatthana. Through these 6, consciousness connects with the world, shaping every moment of perception, feeling, and thought. Dependent origination. These sense bases arise because of Namarupa, the combination of mind and body. When a being is born with the appropriate karma, These faculties unfold naturally. They are not created by a self, but conditioned like flowers blooming when the causes are right. In the human realm, all six are typically present, serving as the foundation for experience and for suffering. Each sense base has two parts, an internal organ and an external object. When they meet and consciousness is present, contact, phassa, arises, leading to feeling and craving. Without these bases, there is no experience at all. In deep meditation, when these bases shut down, the world disappears, revealing that what we call reality is assembled through these six doors. The mind is also a sense base, a subtle one. Unlike the eye or ear, it is not a fixed organ, but a stream of rapidly changing mental events. It receives thoughts, memories, and dhammas. Even our inner world is just another conditioned process, subject to impermanence and arising at the sixth door. Once these six are in place, the rest of the cycle unfolds: contact, feeling, craving, clinging. Namarupa builds the actor and the stage. Salayatana opens the curtain. The show begins. As the Buddha said, "Where there is I and forms, there is I consciousness. With contact as condition, feeling arises." This is not theory. It is the mechanism of suffering. The six sense bases are not evil, but they are dangerous. They are where desire, aversion, and self-illusion take root. The world is tethered by the six, the Buddha warned. If we guard these doors with mindfulness, they become paths to wisdom. But left unguarded, they become six burning cities, inflamed with craving and delusion. Chapter 7. The Point of Collision, Phassa, Contact. Salayatana Paticca Phasso. With the six sense bases as condition, contact arises. Paticca Samuppada, sixth link. The moment a sight is seen, a sound heard, or a thought arises, something vital takes place. Contact. This is phassa, the sixth link in dependent origination. It is the instant when a sense base, its corresponding object, and consciousness converge. At that point, experience begins. The Abhidhamma describes this as the meeting of three things: the sense door, the object, and the arising consciousness, giving rise to contact. It is here that the world, as we know it, is constructed. Unlike the common English meaning of touch, phassa refers to any sensory or mental engagement. Whether the eye sees, the ear hears, or the mind thinks, contact is the spark. It sets off the chain of feeling, craving, and clinging. Each experience we have begins here, the meeting place of inner and outer, where the sense of reality takes form. In truth, the world doesn't pre-exist in a fixed way. It is freshly created at each moment of contact. Seeing a red flower, hearing laughter, or recalling a memory, all of these arise through contact. This makes phassa deeply significant because it conditions the next link, vedana, feeling, and from feeling comes craving. There are 6 types of contact: eye contact, ear contact, nose contact, tongue contact, body contact, and mind contact. Each arises when the proper sense base, object, and consciousness align. In the Abhidhamma, this is described with great precision. Every perception, emotion, and reaction begins here. Phassa is like a trigger. Though brief, it connects the internal world with the external. If we don't recognize it, the cycle rolls on, leading to feeling, craving, and suffering. But if one observes contact clearly, as impermanent and not self, the cycle can be interrupted. This is where insight begins. In meditation, practitioners learn to witness contact directly. A breath felt, a sound noticed. that moment is contact. If we see it arise and fall without clinging, the next link weakens. Craving has no foothold. This is the power of mindfulness. Consider being insulted. The ear hears the word, consciousness arises, and contact is made. Before the feeling of hurt or the reaction of anger, there is a moment of choice. If one is present right then, the cycle can be broken. The Buddha pointed to this space, the meeting point, as a gateway to freedom. Chapter 8. The first taste of experience, Vedana, feeling. Phassa paccaya Vedana, with contact as condition, feeling arises. Paticca Samuppada, seventh link. With every moment of contact, a subtle ripple is born, a feeling. This isn't yet an emotion or a thought, but a raw tone of experience. This is Vedana, the immediate taste of life. It arises the instant the eye sees, the ear hears, or the mind thinks. Feeling comes in three basic flavors: pleasant, sukha; unpleasant, dukkha; and neutral, adukkam sukha. These tones occur rapidly, constantly, across all 6 sense doors, and set the stage for craving. In a single day, thousands of Vedanas rise and fall. Most go unnoticed, but they guide our actions like hidden tides. As the Buddha said, all beings seek pleasure and recoil from pain. Every choice, reaction, and habit is deeply shaped by our drive to feel good and avoid discomfort. It is not wrong, it's how conditioned life works, but it fuels the cycle of samsara. Theravada tradition classifies Vedana in different ways. First, by tone, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Second, by source. Some arise through body contact, others through the mind. Third, in Abhidhamma, by moral association, wholesome, unwholesome, or functional, as in arahants, who feel without craving. This detailed view helps us understand that feelings themselves aren't the problem. It's how we relate to them that matters. The Buddha made it clear: feeling is the cause of craving. A pleasant feeling triggers desire, an unpleasant one sparks aversion, and a neutral one often leads to boredom. This is how tanha, the next link in the chain, quietly takes root. But Vedana is not the enemy. It simply delivers the message. Trouble begins when we react blindly. That's why the Buddha taught mindfulness of feeling as a path to freedom. In the Satipatthana Sutta, he urged us to clearly notice, this is a pleasant feeling, or this is unpleasant. By observing feelings with awareness and equanimity, we stop the chain from progressing. We don't have to crave or resist. We can simply see and let go. In doing so, the grip of samsara weakens. Vedana is like heat. It arises from the friction of contact, but heat only becomes fire when we feed it. When we say, I want this, or I hate that, we fuel the flames. But when we see feelings as fleeting, not self and conditioned, we stop feeding the fire. We still feel, but we do not burn. Chapter 9. The Thirst That Binds, Tanha, Craving. Vedana paccaya tanha, with feeling as condition, craving arises. Paticca Samuppada, eighth link. After contact gives rise to feeling, the untrained mind responds with craving, tanha, the thirst that drives samsara. This thirst is not mere desire, but a deep force that pulls us toward pleasure, identity, and continued existence. It binds us to the cycle of birth and death, fueling every rebirth. The Buddha called it the dart, the burning, the force that makes beings wander aimlessly through endless lives. Tanha manifests in 3 ways. 1. Kama tanha, craving for sensual pleasures like sights, sounds, and touch. 2. Bhava tanha, craving for existence, identity, or becoming something. 3. Vibhava tanha, craving for non-existence or escape through annihilation. Even the desire to stop existing is still a form of clinging. These 3 cravings arise from pleasant, unpleasant, or even neutral feelings, and all keep the wheel of rebirth turning. However, not all desires are tanha. The Buddha distinguished tanha, craving based on attachment or delusion, from chanda, the wise and wholesome motivation for good actions. Wanting to meditate, to be kind, or to understand Dhamma is not the same as craving. Chanda leads toward freedom. Tanha leads to suffering. As the Dhammapada says, from craving, sorrow and fear arise. One free of craving knows peace. Craving emerges in response to feeling. When we experience something pleasant, the mind clings, I want more. When we feel pain, it resists, I want this to stop. Even neutral feelings can lead to a craving for stimulation. If mindfulness is weak, tanha arises instantly. But if one sees the feeling clearly as it is, the chain can be broken. This is why Vedana is such a crucial turning point. According to the suttas and Abhidhamma, tanha is the main engine of rebirth. It shapes the mind's tendencies, even at the moment of death. Whatever we frequently crave becomes the direction of future existence. High or low, tanha doesn't care. It simply pulls consciousness into the next becoming. As long as it's active, liberation is out of reach. The Buddha described tanha as a burning flame. The eye is burning, forms are burning with lust, hatred, and delusion. Every sense base becomes a site of ignition. Craving is the fire that consumes experience and turns it into fuel for more fire. To stop burning, we must extinguish this flame. That is nibbana, the cooling, the going out. Chapter 10. The grasp that binds. Upadana, clinging. Tanha paccaya upadanam, with craving as condition, clinging arises. Paticca Samuppada, 9th link. Craving reaches out, but clinging grabs hold. When tanha intensifies, it transforms into upadana, not just wanting something, but identifying with it. It's the mental glue that says, this is mine, this is me. Clinging fastens us to samsara, turning fleeting desire into deep bondage. If craving is the spark, clinging is the knot, tightening the cycle of becoming. The Buddha identified 4 types of clinging. 1. Kama upadana, attachment to sensual pleasures, sights, sounds, tastes, and fantasies. 2. Ditthi upadana, clinging to views and ideologies. 3. Silabbata upadana, attachment to rites and rituals, mistaking form for transformation. 4. Theravada upadana, the most subtle, belief in a self, in I and mine. This final clinging is the deepest, making liberation impossible until seen through. Upadana feeds the fire of existence. While tanha is the flame, clinging is the fuel. Through it, we accumulate kama, build identities, and create conditions for rebirth. We cling to success, love, meaning, and identity, all with the hope of security or satisfaction. But each form of clinging becomes a seed of future suffering. The Buddha described the 5 aggregates as the burden we carry, not because they exist, but because we cling to them. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness are not the problem. The problem is taking them as mine. That grasping is what makes life heavy, the very heart of dukkha. To let go, we must first see the grasp. Clinging often hides behind noble masks, love, loyalty, purpose. But if we examine it with mindfulness and wisdom, we see it resists change, fears loss, and gives rise to pain. Seeing this clearly is the beginning of freedom. As the Buddha said, when one sees with wisdom that whatever is clung to will decay, the heart is released. Still, not all holding is clinging. In Theravada, holding a teaching wisely is not the same as grasping blindly. Practicing Dhamma is not clinging, unless it becomes part of one's ego. The difference lies in the lens. When I and mine dominate, even wholesome actions become fetters. But when wisdom sees through self-view, the grasp weakens and release becomes possible. Chapter 11. The Momentum of Existence. Bhava, Becoming. Upadana Paccaya Bhavo. With clinging as condition, becoming arises. Paticca Samuppada. 10th link. After clinging takes root, it gives rise to bhava, becoming. Bhava is not static existence, but the active momentum that propels one through the cycle of samsara. It is the energy of continuity, the stream that carries consciousness forward, shaped by kama and fueled by attachment. Bhava is the fertile ground where rebirth is prepared. When conditions ripen, especially clinging and accumulated kama, they generate the next moment of existence. As the Buddha said, by clinging there is becoming, by becoming birth arises. Bhava is the immediate cause of rebirth. Theravada texts classify bhava into 3 kinds. 1. Kama bhava, becoming in sensual realms, driven by desire for sensory pleasure. 2. Rupa bhava, becoming in fine material realms, accessed through deep meditative states. 3. Arupa bhava, becoming in formless realms, based on subtle mental absorption. These types reflect the kama that guides beings into different planes of rebirth. But bhava is not a self or a soul. It is a conditioned process, shaped by clinging, volition, and past deeds. Like a river formed by merging streams, becoming arises from many factors, all impermanent, all without core. Where there is no clinging, there is no becoming, said the Buddha. Without the fuel of attachment, the momentum of existence halts. Bhava doesn't only refer to literal rebirth. It also plays out in daily life. In every moment we build and rebuild our identities. Habits, ambitions, and self-concepts are forms of becoming. Each attachment reinforces the illusion of a fixed self, sustaining the inner wheel of becoming. To break this cycle, we must end bhava. This is the essence of the path. With the cessation of clinging, becoming ceases, and with it, birth and death. This is nibbana, the release from conditioned existence. As the Buddha declared, what had to be done has been done. There is no more of this becoming. Bhava is subtle and easy to overlook. It's not merely being alive, it's the underlying push toward becoming something, someone. This is why insight into bhava requires deep, meditative clarity and wisdom. Through vipassana, careful observation of the body and mind, we begin to see becoming for what it is, momentary, impersonal, and conditioned. With this understanding, clinging weakens and the current of bhava slows, bringing us closer to peace. Chapter 12. The Emergence of Life. Jati, Birth. Bhava paccaya jati. With becoming as condition, birth arises. Paticca Samuppada, 11th link. Jati means birth, the arising of a new existence. It marks the moment when the momentum of bhava, becoming, crystallizes into a new life, a fresh appearance in the endless cycle of samsara. This birth is not only physical, but the manifestation of consciousness and identity in a particular realm, human animal, celestial, or infernal. In Buddhism, birth is not seen as a soul entering a body, but as a conditioned event. It arises due to the energy of becoming, shaped by karma and clinging. When the right conditions align, such as the union of parents or the opening of a karmic path, consciousness finds its next form. It is a process, not a miracle, and definitely not an act of a creator. The 4 types of birth in Theravada Buddhism: Jalabuja, womb-born, beings born from a womb, such as humans, mammals, and many other animals. This is the most familiar form of birth. Andaja, egg-born, beings that are born from eggs, like birds, reptiles, and some insects. This category emphasizes the role of outer casing or shell before hatching. Samsadaja, moisture-born, beings arising in moisture or slime, often considered tiny, invisible organisms or subtle beings that emerge in damp or decaying matter. Traditionally believed to arise without visible parentage. Paticca, spontaneous birth, beings that appear spontaneously at death and rebirth without needing womb, egg, or moisture. This includes devas, brahmas, hell beings, and some pitas, hungry ghosts. Their form arises instantly according to kamma. These variations show that birth, across all realms, is always conditioned, never uncaused or eternal. But with birth comes suffering. As the Buddha said, birth is suffering. Why? Because it opens the door to aging, illness, loss, and death. Birth sets the stage for the entire performance of dukkha. To be born is to enter the realm of impermanence and pain, again and again, unless the cycle is broken. In the chain of dependent origination, jati is both a result and a cause. It is born from becoming, yet it gives rise to aging and death, the final link. Thus, birth is a powerful pivot in samsara, a gateway through which suffering enters, and a wheel that keeps turning unless insight brings it to a stop. Through meditation, one begins to see that birth is not a solid event, but a passing moment in a flowing stream. The aggregates, form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness arise, and that is birth. There is no self entering, just a process unfolding. This wisdom dissolves the illusion of I was born, weakening, clinging at its root. Mindfulness helps us see this clearly. Observing the body, feelings, and mind reveals their impermanence, and with that comes freedom. When one understands that birth is just another conditioned event, not a personal story, the heart begins to turn away from samsara, and in that turning, peace becomes possible. Chapter 13: Birth, Aging, Death, and the Arising of Suffering. Jati jara, marana soka, parideva, dukkha, domanassa, upajanti. Birth, aging, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair arise. Aging and death conditioned by formations, consciousness, and name and form. Birth, jati, marks the beginning of conditioned existence, where a new life and sense of identity arise through past karma, opening the door to suffering. With birth inevitably come aging, jara, the gradual decline of body and mind, and death, marana, the final dissolution of this existence, all reflecting the truth of impermanence, anicca. These physical realities bring forth a deep emotional landscape: sorrow, soka, lamentation, parideva, broad suffering, dukkha, and mental anguish, domanassa, showing how suffering is inseparably woven into the fabric of samsara. The Buddha's profound realization was that all beings, without exception, are bound to these sufferings, not as a pessimistic view, but as a liberating truth to be understood and transcended. Through dependent origination, we see how craving and clinging give rise to becoming and birth, which in turn condition aging, death, and emotional pain, forming a cycle that feeds itself. Yet by contemplating these truths in meditation, observing the decay of the body, the fleeting nature of grief, and the conditioned nature of suffering, insight arises. This insight weakens attachment, bringing clarity and the seed of detachment. Following the noble path of virtue, concentration, and wisdom, one gradually uproots craving, breaks the cycle of samsara, and realizes nibbana, the ultimate freedom beyond birth, death, and all suffering. This is the truth of dependent origination, not a theory, not a belief, but a mirror reflecting why we suffer and how we can be free. Break the link, and the whole chain falls. This is the Dhamma. This is the Buddha's gift. May all beings see clearly. May all beings walk the path. May all beings be free.